Welcome everyone, Michael here with Offshore Citizen. Today we're going to talk about whether you should get another passport. And I'm specifically going to dive into, for people who have good passports, and for example for people who have EU passports, whether they should get another one, including maybe another one in the EU if you were living in the EU. So we're going to talk about a lot of the specifics there, because I think this increasingly concerns a lot of people. And so I'll be curious to hear what you guys have to say. Feel free to put the comments below. And so let's dive in and talk about it. If you're new here, welcome. I'm Michael from Offshore Citizen. We're some of the foremost international tax and relocation specialists. If you're interested in finding ways to lower your tax as far as legally possible using international structures, etc., or if you're interested in relocating to other countries and would like assistance with that, either finding out what's the best solution for you or going through the process of having us help you do it, then please reach out to us. You can book a call with me, calendly.com/Michael-Rosmer, link in the description below, or send a message through offshorecitizen.net. So the first thing that we want to talk about is just some little nuances that some people maybe don't understand. So first of all, what is a passport? So technically speaking, you don't get a passport, you get a citizenship. There is very rare situations where you can have a passport without having a citizenship. So you should become a citizen of a country. That's not the same as getting a residency and going and living there. It is actually, you typically spend a bunch of time. Sometimes you can make an investment or donation or something like that and you can get it. But usually you're going to spend a period of several years living there. You go through a process called naturalization and you get a citizenship. And this basically means that you have permanent right to live there. You don't have to renew it or something like that. You have all the rights to vote. You're in a situation where you get advantage of whatever the benefits of the country are. You can work there. There's basically, you're kind of unrestricted in that regard. And so you were typically born with a citizenship, which was usually based on either where you were born or your parents' citizenship, sometimes both, sometimes a combination. And this is kind of what citizenship is all about and what having a passport or second passport is all about. So passport is the travel document, okay? This is what allows you to go to certain countries. And so different passports have different visa-free countries that they give access to. This can vary from almost none if you're in like Afghanistan to, well over 150 if you're, have a German passport or Singaporean or South Korean or something like that. So let's talk a little bit about should you do that. So you're probably in a few situations. Your first situation might be you just have a bad passport. If you have a bad passport, for example, you're coming from India, you're coming from Nigeria, there's common places that we see people come from who are looking for something. It's a meaningful difference in terms of your ease of travel, in terms of kind of how you're treated at various different institutions, etc. It's almost always good if you can get a second citizenship, second passport in that case. Now, this introduces our first point, which is not all countries allow you to have a second citizenship. In a lot of cases, you can only have one passport. So for example, I mentioned India here. India does not allow dual citizenship. Sometimes people do it without saying so. If they get caught, that's not so great. If they give up their Indian citizenship, they can get something called an OCI card, Overseas Citizen of India. And if you kind of get caught having not reported it, then you can't get that. So there's some advantages to telling them up front that you're going to do this and then getting the OCI card. This being said, totally up to you whether you decide, hey, listen, I want to give up my Indian citizenship or not. Anyway, the bottom line is a bunch of places don't have dual citizenship. Sometimes these are places that actually have good passports. For example, Singapore does not allow dual citizenship. It's kind of a disadvantage. And some places are kind of gradually moving in that direction. For example, Germany for a long time didn't allow dual citizenship. They've now started to allow it. It's great. But I would say the majority of places do allow dual citizenship. So that's kind of point one. It's you're coming from one of these places, you can get a much better passport. Great. Maybe you're in a situation where you already have a decent passport. All right, well, then what? If that's your situation, then why would you want another passport? And I think this really comes down mostly, aside from Americans who may want to renounce, that's their own category, to two reasons. The first reason is, all right, you may just want more freedom. And it's very often the case that one country will give you access to certain parts of the world and another country will give you access to other parts of the world. So for example, I'm originally from Canada and Canada's got a great passport, but you can only live in Canada on a Canadian passport. So, if you were to get an EU citizenship, then it opens up the possibilities of living anywhere in the EU. Okay, that's pretty cool. That's a nice benefit. On the other hand, it also might give you different visa-free access. So for example, Canadians cannot travel to Azerbaijan visa-free. Maybe you're getting a passport in Turkey and that will give you access to Azerbaijan visa-free. Okay, that's an advantage. Now, you're probably not going to Azerbaijan often enough to justify all of that, given that it's a pretty easy e-visa process. I would say where it becomes more relevant for people I see is where they're doing business in China. China doesn't give visa-free access to that many countries. And as a result, say you're from Canada, don't have visa-free access to China, there's a bunch of stuff around that, and as a result, having something like a Dominica passport, which does have visa-free access to China, might give you an advantage. I've definitely had clients who go through that particular process. The other one that is kind of more important is sort of the plan B, and here I want to drill down into EU passports. So plan B is if things go bad, what do you do? And it's nice to have optionality. You just don't know what the future is like. You don't know what your life is going to be like. Just all kinds of terrible things could end up happening that you don't anticipate, and it's good to have a backup. By the way, it is very good to get these in advance, because if you, say, get a criminal record, which, by the way, you could be innocent and still get a criminal record in a bunch of places. Heck, if you're even going through criminal proceedings, even if you're totally innocent and it might drag out for several years, then often it's like, okay, like that's what you got to do to be able to get another passport. So you got to think about that. Very important, okay? Very, very important. So in those cases, you're thinking to yourself, well, I should probably get it now while I can, or as soon as possible. I've seen these people, I have quite a few clients who've gone and lived in the UK. They've lived there for enough years to naturalize. They have indefinite right to leave to remain. And so they're thinking to themselves, well, I don't know if I really need the passport. Get the passport. It's a nice thing to have. Like, you just never know what the future is going to hold. So that's, like, I think, a generally good rule. Now, if you're, I used to say to people who were in a situation that they had a good passport, I was like, I don't know that you really need it. Then, you know, yet in Canada, they're going after these truckers for these truckers protests. There's all kinds of crazy things happening in France and UK and a bunch of these parts of the world. And so increasingly, I tell people, listen, like, if your net worth is 7 figures, you should seriously be considering it in most cases. If your net worth is 8 figures, you should 100% be doing it. Like, get something. At least have something as a backup. Because you can kind of think of it as an insurance policy. And it's an insurance policy you pay once for, and you get to use it for your entire life. So if it costs you 200 grand, you know, it's like maybe 2% or less of your net worth. That's like not really a big deal compared to the risks that you might have over the next few decades. And if you can do it for your family, et cetera, like, you know, that you can really like save that cost. In the case of something like Turkey, you can just buy a property worth 400 grand, hold the property, it's an investment. You can, you know, hopefully make some cash flow off it while it's there, you know, sell it in 5 years later or something like that, and you can have the passport in the meantime. So there's lots of ways of doing it in a way that are like, it doesn't have to cost you a lot out of pocket. There's also, you know, if you're interested in going and living in some places, then there's some stuff like that. So there's a variety of different plans for how to get a second passport. But I think it's worth it for a lot of people to be considering plan Bs in like a very rapidly changing world. And this comes to a question that a client of mine asked a little while ago, which is part of the inspiration for this video, which was all about, hey, listen, if I already have an EU passport, should I get another EU passport? And this touches on an interesting thing, which is like, you have a strong degree of correlation, right? If Germany is going nuts, probably Austria is also going nuts, you know? Not guaranteed, but probably. And so do you really gain much by having the separation? I would generally say, like, if it's available to you, you probably should still do it. Now, if it's, you have to really go to your way, then listen, like, there's things that are more important to life than, you know, just going and camping out someplace you don't like for several years to qualify for a passport. You can chase a lot of passports for vanity or something like that. It's probably not the greatest thing to do. But I would say that even within the EU, especially given the uncertainty, like, we don't know how long the EU will hold together. It could well be that in 10 years, the EU is no longer the EU, right? A bunch of countries have been kicked out or they've broken off or something like that. We've already seen Brexit happen. You certainly have seen kind of threats that Poland should be kicked out. There's certainly talk that Hungary should be kicked out. Who knows what will change over time? And with that in mind, I think it's very sensible for somebody to take advantage of whatever those opportunities are that are in front of them. I wouldn't like make that your main goal, but if there's some place that you're like, hey, listen, I'd like to go and live there anyway, it's a good situation, then 100% naturalize, 100% do it. It's just like, why not? If you would say, okay, well, I'm very wealthy, maybe I could buy a Maltese passport. Is that worth it? I think it really depends on like how much money that is for you. Like how much of a difference does it make? Usually there's better options if you're just looking at a backup. But this being said, you don't really got to be a personal decision. If you're interested in getting second passports, you're like, hey, I don't really know how to navigate all this, please reach out to us. We can help you. We've helped lots of people every year get a bunch of citizenships. And so we're happy to help you as well. And if you have other questions or comments, put them in the comments below. I look forward to seeing you on the next video.